we are going to correct the second error. An entry of 200,000 shillings returns outward was made in error in the sales book instead of purchases return book. What kind of error is this? I want you to read it slowly. An entry of 200,000 shillings returns outward was made in error in the sales book instead of purchases return book. What kind of error is that? This is the error of commission. An error of commission occurs where an entry is made in the correct side, all right, but the wrong account. Correct side, but the wrong account. Correct side means either debit side or credit side. Go back to the question. An entry of 200,000 returns outward was made in error in the sales book instead of purchases return book. So you have sales account was made here instead of purchases return. Purchases returns account. Purchases returns. An entry returns outward. All right? An entry of returns outward was made in error in the sales book. Returns outward, we know, is also known as purchases returns. These are returns that are made, or these are goods that are returned to the suppliers or the creditors or the accounts payable. Returns out. It has nothing to do with sales. But here we read that an entry was made in error in the sales book. So the question now is, when returns are made, which accounts are affected? Which accounts are affected? The accounts that are affected are the purchases returns account or returns outward account and the creditors account. So the creditors account is debited and purchases returns credited. That is the double entry. Because the accounts payables, when purchases are made, this account is credited. But when making return, that means this balance has to be reduced. So this account is debited with purchases returns. And the corresponding double entry is to credit the purchases returns with accounts payable. That's how you make the right entries. The right entry, when returns are made, is to debit accounts payable and credit purchases returns. So instead of crediting purchases returns, an error was made, and we read it, that it was made in error in the sales book. So the sales book was credited. So you can see there is an error in this account. So how do we remove this amount? We remove this amount by doing what? By debiting. When we debit this account, then corresponding entry is to credit the purchases returns, because this is the correct entry. So the purchases returns will be credited. Purchases returns. Debit this account, That is how you correct. Debit sales, credit purchases returns. So I come here, I write sales account is to be debited. The amount is 200,000. Purchases returns should be credited 200,000. The narration is to correct error of commission. To correct error of commission. I hope you are following the discussion. I'm not just making the entries, I'm taking the effort, making the effort to ensure that you understand why I'm debiting and why I'm crediting the entries in the general journal.